President-elect Obama has made healthcare one of his benchmark issues. We don't know what the new Congress is going to come up with in consultation with President-elect Obama. But at the state level, there's still issues that we could address that don't require us to go back to Congress or be in line with congressional mandates. Chief among those is working with insurance companies and insurance providers to make sure that preventative care is always covered. Because we do know that for every dime that or every penny that we spend on preventative care, we save money in the back end, because there's so many people who, if they just had access to preventative care, the issue wouldn't get so far out of line that they then find themselves in the emergency room for an issue or medical condition that could have been easily treated back on the front end. The same goes with community-based health clinics. Most people don't even know that in Denver we have a significant community-based health clinic network that goes somewhat underutilized, and we need to direct more of our most at-risk and our poor to those clinics so they can get services early on before they cost an awful lot of money when they go to university or hospital or Denver Health for imaging care in an emergency room, which costs far more money. So we need to focus on those areas right now, because we can get our hands around those and have significant impact on the bottom lines for both insurance companies and the bottom line for our hospitals that serve as a provider of last resort.
President-elect Obama apparently has charged Congress with having 2 weeks after they are sworn in to deliver a stimulus package to his desk that he can sign. Are you guys going to have something on January the 21st for Governor Ritter to sign in the way of an economic stimulus package?
I think that's our hope. I mean, you can ask the member of the select committee what they're going to be able to come up with. But part of the reason that the Speaker-elect and I and Representatives May and Senator Penry charged them early on, saying, let's do this right now. Let's not wait until January 7th after the speeches. Let's get them to work right now so that hopefully that they can come up with something for us to move at the first part of this session. So that's our hope. No pressure.
I haven't heard the phrase new energy economy much today. Has that been forgotten as a potential job generator and state revenue generator?
No, the new energy economy is still very much at the top of our list. When you look at the numbers that the governor talks about, we've created 90,000 new jobs in the new energy economy in the state of Colorado. And Colorado is uniquely situated to be at the cutting edge of the new energy economy with NREL, with the wind farms that we've created in Colorado. Our capital is the first LEED certified capital in the country. I mean, we're moving ahead with this. And that has to be a necessary portion of creating new jobs in the state of Colorado, is to create resources and incentives for the new energy economy to continue to grow in the state of Colorado.
Let me say one more thing on that. We have talked in the Select Committee on Jobs about the need for more transmission lines in eastern Colorado. As you know, there are two grids, electricity grids in the United States. There's the eastern grid and the western grid. The western grid begins basically sort of close to the Kansas-Colorado line and goes west to the getting ready to call it the left coast, but it's the west coast. And, sorry. But anyway, it's the western grid. We are on the eastern edge of the western grid. And the way electricity flows, that means that there's really never been a need for much in the area of electricity lines to be this close to the edge, because there's always excess electricity that's coming back to the edge that was more than needing the minimal demand that eastern Colorado has for electricity. However, now that we have a transmission capacity in eastern Colorado, the problem that we have is how do we get the electricity to the people? And of course, electricity that's generated by wind in eastern Colorado could go anywhere, just anywhere the grid carries it. But we need to look at how can we, through perhaps running a piece of legislation to make the permitting process for transmission lines a little bit less burdensome. And we are looking at that. We've talked about that in the Jobs Task Force. And we may have to craft legislation to help the PUC move those permits through faster. Most of that would not be requiring that the state pay for it. It would be paid for by the private utilities, but we just need to make it so that they can build those lines faster and figure out a way that they can do it that will not hurt the environment.
Yeah, several of you mentioned that you consider education to be very, very important. But it sounds like higher education is about to become the bank again for budget cuts as it was back in 2002. How do you keep our higher education system attractive for attracting businesses? Because the last time we went through budget cuts in higher ed, businesses said this state wasn't a good place to come because the higher education system was not a good incentive for them.
Well, the speaker designate just talked about how critical it is we look at or continue to look at constitutional reform. When we get in situations like we're in with regard to our budget, there's only very few areas that we can cut, and higher education is one of those. We tried last year with some legislation I think Senator Penry worked on along with Senator Schwartz and Senator Risgar in terms of trying to help higher ed with an infusion of dollars, but because of the Constitution and how it's currently constructed, we have just a handful of areas where we can draw revenue, and that happens to be one of them.
To go back to the original remarks, I mean, I think in the last year we had a very contentious partisan fight over the budget, and I hope that doesn't repeat itself this year. But one of the things, as you recall, that we fought about last year was a number of new FTEs per the size and growth of individuals working for government. I think 2,500 in the last 2 years, although that number will be slightly less because of the hiring freeze. And that was the wrong thing to do, because every individual that we hire, that we put on the state payroll with all the boutique of benefits that come with that, is a dollar you can't spend on higher education, that you can't spend on Medicaid, that we can't spend on other programs. And that's why, as when you reach lean times, which we are clearly going to see, I mean, if the budget grows at all this year, I think many economists will view that as being extremely fortunate. I mean, when you look at what's happening in other states, I mean, you've got double-digit billion-dollar deficits. And so, given that reality, we're going to have to tighten our belt and make tough choices. That's why I was glad to hear the governor talk about extending the hiring freeze. In his original budget, there was a request for, I think, just short of 900 new FTEs. I don't think, as a state, we can afford that unless we want to exact the cuts in higher education that you described.
Can you tap that FML money to mitigate those cuts coming to higher ed, or do you have to wait another year?
The most recent revenue forecast that came in showed that after you you service the COPs for all the projects that we built, I think there's about $20-some-odd million in FML revenue that's available, and I think there's a pretty good chance that those dollars will be tapped to close gaps in the higher education budget, especially if we experience the kind of dramatic downturn in revenues that many expect.
We'll take one more question. Okay, thank you.
You did.